Welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Jade Harrell. I'm joined by Klear, Amy Rivera, and Teena Love. We get together once a week on purpose to share our experiences and how we are taking on the world as it comes to us each week, as it deals with women and the issues that are in our world. But we always like to start, of course, with what we're loving. And what I'm loving right now, personally, are earplugs because I have swimmer's ear. As much as I was enjoying swimming, now I can't hear because there's some water clogged in there. Who knew? What about you, Teena?
Well, just this past weekend, I had an experience, a spa experience. So I am loving Q-Stetics. It is a spa on Manchester, and I was able to go in. It was very relaxing. It was a huge self-care gift to myself, where I was able to get a foot massage and leg and arm and a yoni steaming. And I'll tell you about that maybe some other time.
Your yoni, my yoni. You say yoni, I say yoni. It's all good in the end. Amy, what are you loving right now?
Well, as you know, I love to read, and my favorite book right now is called The Financial Diet. And the reason I love it is because it talks about how to get paid what you deserve. And like most women, sometimes I fail to understand what my financial worth is. So I thought I'd dig deep into this book and really understand that.
I can't wait to hear more about that. Keep me updated if you
Absolutely.
don't mind. Really great. Klear.
I finally became a grown-up, and what I'm loving is a vacuum that I just ordered. I literally went to my friend's house to test drive it because it's a vacuum and I shouldn't be that excited about it. But I have hardwood floors and I have carpets, so I got the hot ticket item right now. It's sold out in every store, but I somehow managed to get an order on one through the manufacturer. So I love this incoming vacuum that I have.
Wow. I can't say that I do not share your excitement because I want to hear what it does. And I have some questions about corners and stairs. In fact, I just got one of those robot ones where everybody thought it was useless. I'm like, no, it keeps working when y'all don't. So
I spent a lot of time comparing. My friend literally squirted ketchup and mustard on the floor.
You ran some tests and it was good. Oh, I can't wait to see. I want you to demonstrate for us. Well, we're good, ladies. We're going to switch things up a little bit for this episode in particular because there's so much conversation about the upcoming election, just days away, and it's causing serious stress on our nation. So we're going to bring in an expert to talk to us about something called election stress disorder. There is such a thing. We have the doctor that discovered it. Dr. Stephen Stosny brought this to our attention back in 2016, and now he joins us to talk about how it's changed over the years. Welcome to our program, Dr. Stosny.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I have to ask you too, Dr. Stosny, what are you loving right now?
What am I loving? It's a beautiful day here in Maryland. We're close to Washington, but we're trying to forget about that.
Well, it's interesting that's how you frame the conversation because we are all experiencing something. I'm glad you were able to put a name to it. Where were you and what were you doing when you discovered election distress disorder?
Well, I first discovered it in the spring of 2016 when the election cycle began, because my practice is with highly distressed couples, chronic resentment, anger, or emotional abuse. And there was a sharp uptick in the number of emergency calls I was getting. And it turned out that people were upset about the election. If you remember, that one, well, kind of pales in vitriol to this one, but it was very vitriolic. And negative emotions are very contagious. And anxiety is very contagious. If you're around a resentful person, you're more likely to get resentful than you're likely to get happy if you're around a cheerful person. Because negative emotions are more salient. That means they're more necessary for survival. So they're more contagious and we remember them more.
Absolutely.
To even remember a positive emotion, it has to occur in a 5-to-1 ratio with negative.
5-to-1 ratio?
Yeah, at least. That means 5 positives for every 1 negative. For instance, in the debate, both candidates said positive things, but we don't remember them because they weren't in that 5-to-1 ratio.
And which debate are you talking about? Because this has been across the board, actually, in how we're engaging in our electoral process, and how we're seeing our candidates play out their positions on stage and before us. What happened in 2016 that made this still relevant now, that it needed to be resurfaced and to discuss again?
Well, for one thing, the outcome of the election was unexpected and unanticipated. Bad
Meaning the
news is
popular
always,
vote was contrary to the electoral vote?
yeah, and the victor was unexpected. He was way behind. And unanticipated bad news is always worse than anticipated bad news. But it morphed almost immediately into headline stress disorder, where you had continual headlines that would cause stress. See, what's exaggerated that is social media. Political messages over social media seem more personal because they're mixed with personal messages. And we carry our phones on our persons, so it seems like part of our bodies. So the political messages are more personal. If a candidate's devalued, you feel devalued.
So what would you recommend we do, and how do we even recognize the symptoms? You've probably done some research or have data. As you were searching through, how does it manifest in us? What are those symptoms? And then, what do we do with all of this vitriol going around?
Well, the symptoms are your whole body gets tense before you check the news. Your brain is preparing you for a saber-toothed tiger. That's what it's doing. And the problem with that is it's secreting a lot of cortisol, which is the stress hormone and very bad for your health in big doses. If you're thinking about the election a lot and dreading the outcome of it, how it's going to play out, if you're having trouble sleeping, and if you're getting irritable at home. See, once the alarm system is activated, it becomes a general response. In other words, your brain starts looking for threat everywhere. So the breadcrumbs on the counter will seem a lot worse because the election is getting you upset.
Now we're talking about an election here, doctor. We're not talking about an actual bear or panther or life-altering, physically kind of outcome. And you're using terms like alarm and distress and those types of, how is it that it crossed over from what might be a natural response to something that seems to be social or intellectual as a real problem?
It's because it's using the same system to defend the ego that it used to defend for survival. Cortisol and adrenaline are survival-based hormones. They were never evolved to be experienced every day. They were just for emergencies. We're experiencing them just about every minute. And cortisol actually wears out the linings of your organs in high doses.
Well, you mentioned that election stress disorder then morphed into headline stress disorder. If you were to define election stress disorder, would we be able to just fill in the blank with any type of thing that would cause this, like you said, use the similar systems and cause similar responses?
Anything that's very negative, because negative emotions, because of their immediate survival importance, are more contagious. Your brain gives them priority processing. That's one of the ironies about emotions. If you have more positive and negative emotions, you'll live longer and be happier. If you can admire the beautiful lawn and the sun glinting through the trees, but you got to notice the snake in the grass. So your brain's always looking for that. So when there are more snakes in the grass, then you're not noticing the beauty. See, all the time you spend thinking about the election, you're not thinking about your relationships, your spirituality, your children, the things that make life worthwhile, you're not attending to. Whatever you focus on becomes more important than what you don't focus on.
So I hear there's some solution in that, and where we put our focus is how we start to cope. Is that correct?
Yes, what you need to focus on to be an antidote to anxiety is your relationships. That's the natural regulation of anxiety. The problem is under stress, a lot of people tend to isolate and withdraw from their relationships. And that's the worst thing you can do. If you're living with a family member, hug more. That gives you oxytocin and that regulates your anxiety.
But we've got a bit of a situation here. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of another pandemic of racial inequity and injustice and that struggle. Here is yet another that sounds like it's contagious, it spreads, and can cause significant stress on those that do not have healthy relationships, who do not have healthy outlets, and may not have some pretty flowers to look at outside their home. Is there a difference between men and women, races, economic circumstances that amplify this for some other more than others?
There's a big difference between men and women because estrogen makes you more sensitive to anxiety. More than double the rate of anxiety disorders, that's when it really interferes with your functioning, is female. Also, women have more complex social relationships, more girlfriends, closer relationships with children and children's parents, children's friends, and you tend to worry about all of them. So you have a lot more to worry about.
Yeah, sounds like it's very important that we have let's talk and time to talk.
It is.
Like you and with each other. And I'd really like to open it up so that the ladies can ask and, ponder some of this with you. If you don't mind, we bring them back into the conversation at this point. Sure. Ladies, as you're listening to this, do you hear something familiar? Teena?
Well, there are a couple of things. Thank you, Dr. Stosny, for joining us. I was hearing Dr. say that, what you're focusing on becomes, this big thing. And so I find myself having to, kind of check myself when I'm so focused and engrossed in what's happening to turn to my spirituality, as you were saying, doctor, and have devotion and turn to my faith and, have, Bible study and just devotions regularly to bring me back to be centered. That's helping. And one other thing that I've also noticed is that there seems to be a tone of just that negativity, even when you're driving on the street, people seem to be, cutting people off and they're just so agitated. And it's just amazing to me. I had a friend, her son is autistic. He was just riding his bike in the neighborhood in St. Charles or Lake St. Louis out in that area. And a gentleman got out of the car and grabbed this boy by the neck, and pushed him down. And I just thought, what is really going on right now? There just seems to be a sense of evil, short fuse. Everybody's angry. And I'm concerned about the reaction after the election, no matter what side. I really am concerned with how the state of people and how they will be as a result of all this.
There's a good chance it's going to get worse before it gets better. You see, it's basically anxiety, but all you need to get anger from anxiety is blame. In other words, anxiety is a fear something bad's going to happen and it's going to be hard to cope with. And if that's somebody's fault, then it becomes anger and you have adrenaline that makes you feel temporarily more powerful. The problem is it comes at a high cost to your health and well-being. You're much better to regulate the anxiety than to blame it on someone.
So we can't expect there to be a relief once the election is over and we get the results?
I don't think there's going to be a social relief. There has to be an individual. You have to pay attention to what's important to your life. If the worst happens in the election, you have to think of what you're going to do to make your life more meaningful.
What are you talking about, doctor? We're just making a choice. What do you mean the worst? We're just picking a person, aren't we?
Yeah, but it seems worse than that when you're highly focused on it.
Indeed.
And the constant messages keep your focus on it.
Yeah. Amy, have you stopped talking to a friend or relative because of their views in this election? Has that occurred at all?
I actually stopped following quite a few people, to be quite honest, because, you know, like the doctor was saying about the cortisol levels, and with my lymphatic disease, when my cortisol levels rise, my inflammation begins and I begin to swell. And so every time I turned the phone on, I saw a particular person just go in, and I immediately started to respond in a negative fashion. So now, not only do I stop following people, but I put my phone away. I do what I need to do for my businesses, and then I put it away because it's affected me in my personal life. And again, I'm focusing on the things I should not be focusing on. And I was taking it personal, and I didn't even realize it. So what he is saying makes perfect sense to me. I feel like I had a therapy session just now.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, I'm already looking to see when we can have him back to really talk about that anxiety response, the anger, as well as relationships. Amber, what about you? Have you thought differently about your friends or relatives because of how
so I have found out who understands credible sources and who doesn't, based on what they share. And I've been Maria Kondoing people out of my life for a long time, and this is no different.
I'm sorry,
I do have a question for you, doctor.
What is
Maria
that?
Kondoing, it means that if you don't help me move forward in my life, or you're dragging me down, it's I wish you well, I wish you still eat, but you're not going to eat at my table anymore. You are out. And it's just, I mean, I'm a very busy person, and I'm super business minded and motivated, and I love real personal connections. And if you're not in it to move forward, and you're just going to drag people down with you, I'm going to swim away.
Does it sound like we're on the right track with our responses and some of the things that you're hearing from us that we resorted to, but that you might also recommend?
Well, one thing that you have to do is value your health. And another difference with the way women deal with anxiety is you somatize more. That means you develop more physical symptoms. You have a greater reaction to the cortisol. You're going to have headaches, stomach aches, muscle aches, more colds. Your immune system gets depressed, which is very dangerous this time of with the pandemic. So it is harder on women because of the physical stress. Focus on what's really important to you. Like I think it was Amber said, that'll move your life forward. You know, I like it to ask my clients to fast forward to near the end of your life, like 50 years from now. You're not going to regret who won this election. What you are going to regret is not being as compassionate and kind to the people you love. That's what real human spirit is about.
Absolutely.
I have a question for the doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that we have, as a society, more stress in our current times, or do you think that we lack coping mechanisms that generations previous to us had?
It's both. Research shows there's more stress. It's been going up steadily, spiked up in 2016, and has spiked up since the pandemic and this election cycle. That's empirical. We know that for a fact. I think you put your finger on something with the coping mechanisms. The primary coping mechanisms now are blame, denial, and avoidance. No personal responsibility, in other words. The bad thing about personal responsibility is you have to do some effort to repair things. The good thing about it is that you're empowered. You can do something about it. Whereas blame, denial, and avoidance make you powerless. There's nothing, if I feel bad and it's your fault, what can I do about it?
Right.
just
how would I rephrase that for myself? Because we are a Let's Talk or a women's program. What would our self-talk need to be changed to, instead of, I can't do anything about it because the blame is over there? What is that empowering conversation we can have?
What can I do to improve my experience at this moment? But the thing about improve is it's not fix. Improvement is incremental. How can I make myself feel 5% better? And then once it's 5% better, it's easier to become 10% better. And then once it's 10% better, it's easier to become 20% better. But it's very hard to go from 0 to 100% when it comes to negative emotions, because the cortisol takes 20 minutes to wash out of your bloodstream.
Interesting. And it takes very much less time for it to take over, right? I love that you have equipped us and enlightened us today, Dr. Stosny. I can't thank you enough for being our guest and joining us for Let's Talk.
Well, I appreciate it. Let me just say one thing to reinforce your show.
Please.
All over the world, the happiest and healthiest women have strong networks of girlfriends. That's in every culture it's been studied. It's the girlfriends. It's not husbands. It's girlfriends.
It's girlfriends. That's right. And ladies, it's a matter of life and death. Dr. Stosny said, if you value your health, then you'll make this matter. And even more critical is right now, in this time that we're focusing on breast cancer and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, this is the last thing you want to do is increase your stress, the cortisol, and the things that can deter your health and make it harder to cope in what seems to be a wave of plenty of more things to come our way. So there's more ways to support yourself, as well as to support causes that benefit research and patient support when it comes to breast cancer. So we'll talk more about that as well when we come back for Let's Talk. And thank you again, Dr. Stosny. We look forward to having you with us again.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
All right, stick around, everybody. We'll be right back.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund Reading.
Why do you not get me?
I do. This is what it feels like for kids with learning and attention issues. Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Jade Harrell here with Amber Klear, Amy Rivera, and Teena Love. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we have a few more days to support and engage. But as we were talking during the break, we realized there was something more that connected us. And that is, when we talk about stress and anxiety with the election stress disorder, we found that when it comes to relationships and the people we're engaging, that when we find something common that is also important, we find a way to bridge that gap and work together towards something good. And it turns out Breast Cancer Awareness Month is a great one for that. Teena, I really appreciate you sharing that about the differences that you've had to share politically with your family members.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can't just X our family members off. I mean, we can do that on Facebook, perhaps. But, when it's your sister or your brother or your mother or your father, you have to see them. You're going to run across them. And so what I've done is just try to figure out what it is that brings us together. What's the common thing that, although we may not agree about a mask, although we may not agree about, Ice Cube or whatever it is, what is it that we do agree about that will bring us together? Dr. Stosny said, we'll look back on this and we won't care who won the election, but we'll care about how kind we were to one another, the love. And, I'm always saying that. So that to me is very, very important that we ought to focus on.
At the end of the day, how many times is that the thing that still remains when we're crumbled to ashes, or when we're involved in conflict? Love can pull us out of that. If somebody got sick right now and we were in the middle of a political conversation, we drop that conversation.
Absolutely.
And go help them. Or if we haven't, how many people have we fell out with and lost connection to over a matter? And then nothing but time and heart was lost thereafter. So I love that we're able to at least rally around another focus and cause. But you know what's also interesting in our past few conversations, many of the political things that we're discussing affect our personal lives, including where and how help is going to be distributed for healthcare and breast cancer research and treatment. Here we were just talking about political views. We still have a conversation about our new Supreme Court justice that will be appointed. So there is some real crossover. I wish I would have asked him, even though we're focusing on the good things, even our Bible says, focus on what's good, true, and right. We don't get to make those things disappear. What do we do with what's sitting on the shelf? Do you put it away, Amber, altogether?
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite of Tina too, where I have written off certain family members. I went non-contact with my mom, my dad, and half of my siblings about 8 months ago. No, longer than that. Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't just one issue. It was repeated issues over and over and over again. And so, yeah, I have them not only blocked on social media, I have them blocked from being able to call me. I have them blocked from my partner's phone. So
like they're completely now removed from your
Mhm.
environment and life because
Absolutely.
of their point of
And
view.
honestly, the minute that I blocked their number and deleted all of the previous conversations after reading through them, it was like a weight that was lifted off of my chest.
We can't deny what Dr. Stosny said about the connection between our health and engaging in this discourse and really being in conflict with people over their points of view, which they most certainly can have. So it is very important that we understand the connection between our health. And if you had to make that choice, you were able to see immediately how differently you felt physically.
Yeah.
And I guess as we talk about putting our energy into something positive, can you share with me maybe this month, like what organization are you supporting and why, or who do you recommend with breast cancer awareness and resources and treatment?
So I always try to support somewhere local, somewhere that the money stays in the community. And for breast cancer stuff, I actually support Gateway to Hope. It's a local organization, and they don't necessarily cover people's medical bills, but they cover the bills that don't stop coming when the medical bills start. So people don't realize when you're sick that it's not just, oh, the insurance is going to cover that. That's not always the case, because the insurance doesn't cover the time that you have to take off work. The insurance doesn't cover the travel expenses, the mortgage payment that you're going to miss because you've had to take off so much work. So Gateway to Hope provides resources for people during their treatment of breast cancer. And when I say people, I mean men and women, because men do get breast cancer. So I think that they are a fantastic organization. And if you do need help with your medical bills, they can point you in the direction for some resources for that too. So
Absolutely. I appreciate that organization. So I'm just going to second that. There's no need for me to go into it because I really value what they've done, the access that they've created, and the many people that they've been able to help and afford. What about you, Tina?
Well, I think I said a few shows back, the Tord Foundation, although it's the best store that I love anyway for me, but they have a special collection that they are honoring the Susan G. Komen breast cancer awareness fund. So that's where I am supporting right now.
Miss Amy, and I go to you for a list of all kinds of good stuff to get involved in, but specifically for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, where are your energies?
Well, it's towards my own organization and just fighting lymphedema. Majority of our patients are breast cancer survivors, both men and women, and the money that we do raise here locally stays locally with the patients. And as a lymphedema patient myself, I have to support my organization because it's a community for me, but it also is it's a healing process for me as well.
Absolutely. And that's what we've been talking about. How do we keep our money local? How do we keep pouring into our community? Girls, this has been good to me this week. Thank you all.
Yes, this was a great, great conversation. I feel like I had a therapy session. And
I want to call him back right
I know. I don't feel crazy.
But I better do the work. I better do the self-work this week and then come back to him and say, well, here's what I've done. Thank you everyone so much for watching Let's Talk. We're really glad you're with us, and you can catch new episodes every Tuesday. Comment and let us know what you're talking about so you can join the conversation. We have more great guests, more great conversation, and more real true heart talk coming up. Make sure you follow us on at STLTV as well on social media. You all take care, be blessed, do blessed, and we'll see you next week. Yeah. I'm still working.
Jade's like,
no.
Stop talking. I keep messing with my thing.
That is so super cute. Oh, I love that. Look.
Thanks.
Oh, I
have sweatpants on underneath.
Make sure you tune in to Let's Talk this week. Me, Amy, Amber, and Tina are talking with an expert about election stress dysfunction. I want to say erectile dysfunction.